Here we go. Hey, Brendan. Hello again. I'm glad we're doing this little video blog that we can share across both our communities and share a little bit more about who you are, why you started it all. So yeah, welcome.
Oh, thank you, Push. And it's always good to speak to you.
Yes, no, it's funny. And
Kindred spirit.
yes, and I know a lot about smartass undies through because since I guess you guys conceptualized, I've been following you on Instagram, and of course we've connected via various mediums through social media, through phone calls, and cut to this day, we also stock your smartass undies socks on our platform. So
Yay.
yeah, so it's super good. How did it all start? I know you're an occupational therapist. How did smartass undies came around, and why did you start it?
Well, Push, if somebody had said to me a couple of years ago that I would be selling underwear online, I thought they must be on some sort of substance because it really wasn't on my radar. But something that I've always been interested in is wisdom.
Yeah,
Is the messages and quotes that help bring us back to what's important in life. And our toilet wall is covered with little quotes from the Dalai Lama, Mother Teresa, to Thoreau, and Dr. Zeus,
yeah,
all on the wall.
yeah,
And like you, I'm a dad, and I've said to my children, if anything ever happens to me, the most important thing they can do is to not only read, but to take in and then learn how to put into practice those things on the toilet wall.
yeah.
uh,
So nice.
and then I started thinking, where else? We've got the messages on the wall, and throughout the house we've got these little affirmation cards, but they quickly start to become invisible. And being an occupational therapist, we have a core philosophy of doing, of taking action, being involved in your own life.
Yeah,
And I started thinking about, well, what is something that people can do to help trigger the mind? And what is something that people already have a habit of doing?
yeah,
And it really was 3 a.m. in brain fart, woke up with this idea, um, thinking about a billboard where I can put, positive messages to help trigger positive thoughts. And then I thought, what do people do every day? Most people, most days, change their socks and undies. Although I'm a Darwin boy and living up in Darwin, often it was just thongs every day, but socks sometimes.
yeah,
Um, and that's where the concept started. It really, was people. You don't see messages when you've got shoes on the socks, or you don't see the messages when people are wearing their undies, but you see them when you take them out of the drawer. You see them when you put them into the wash, when you take them out, when you hang them up. I now make folding clothes part of my mindfulness practice.
yeah.
Is that every time I pull up a sock, it's a moment to reflect on a key value in life.
Oh,
Uh,
that's
so
amazing.
that's really the beginning.
That's just actually, I didn't know a fair bit of that. That's amazing. And even the thing that you said about if something ever happened to you, you would want your kids to take those messages as like a guideline. I'm very close to my grandfather. He's about in his late 90s now. And we talk quite regularly. And he's like, you can say in a way, my guiding light in many ways. And he often says that, look, the body and the life is temporary in a way. I'm going to go one day, and he just wants me. But he's like the words, the things that we've shared, the spoken word, the things. It's always going to stay with you as long as you are there. And when you think about the chats we've had, the things that we've kind of given to each other or connected on, when you think about them very consciously, I'll be there. I'll be there in spirit in a way. And I truly believe that, and it gives me a joy every day to think, okay, this is going to, my grandfather's always with me, even though we are so far apart from each other. And yeah, it's just those, and then putting them into practice is obviously the hard part. But it's great if we can have something that just keeps you ticking along every day. We're humans, we need that motivation, I would say, to keep your mind on the right track.
Absolutely. I think that's the key word you said, that we're human. We're only human. Nobody stays joyous and full of light every day.
Yeah.
And I really believe that motivation and memory, they're fallible. We get tripped up. They fade sometimes. We can read something of value and have this great concept, but often we start the day and then phone call, this happens, we've got a problem solve. Having a business is that challenges arise. But I believe that the most valuable thing we can have in our lives are our values.
Yeah.
And they're the key things. If we can impart those, like your grandfather has done with you, impart our values to the next generation, that's how we create a better and better world.
Yes.
And
an optimistic and kinder world, I assume. So like that's what I get out. Like I wear your socks pretty much every day, and so does Siobhan. And we actually even have your undies as well. It's just that it just triggers something in your mind as you put them on. Like we mix and match our socks. Some days it's like just integrity or kindness. And we are early risers. So in the morning when you put them on, and if I'm going somewhere, it just somehow installs something in your brain, like you just read the word and you're wearing that word on you. So there is, I feel personally, as a customer or as someone who wears these positive messages things, it does do help in my everyday today positive mindset, I would say.
Yes, yeah. It's sometimes it's some simple triggers to help bring us back. I believe that there's beauty in the world, and we can do beautiful things every day when we're mindful of it. When we come back to, okay, this is my purpose, and this is what I can contribute. Yes, and that challenge, the challenge to block out all the other stuff, especially in our modern life with technology, and both of us are social media users, to use it in a way that benefits us, and the algorithms work on everybody, and try not to get sucked into those negativity that comes up, and the distraction. That's the big challenge.
Yes, not true. And social media in general, like as I think in our early days when we both had started, Instagram and Facebook seemed to be, people ask me about their like, oh, what's been the hardest thing in terms of business? And for me, it was social media. It's just because you want to be genuine and you want to do things, but then there's so much noise out there, and be like, okay, how many followers you've got? How people don't ask about how's like the back end story. What's your supply? How are you feeling? How do you feel when you have a sale? All those stuff. It's most about how's your Instagram following going? How many likes have you got on Facebook? And it seems to be so surrounded around that as a measure for your business. And for a startup, unless you're coming up with something revolutionary as a product, it's quite hard to put yourself out there and really get that exposure. And it takes time to build that trust with customers and a community.
Yeah, absolutely. Trying to find, to find your tribe, that there are, you go, we know that there are people out there who would, benefit from these things, who want to purchase products that make a difference, but it gets harder and harder to reach people with, more and more noise. And I haven't mastered any TikTok dances, so that's sort of not my way of being able to catch and engage people.
Yeah.
But connecting, every single person, one person at a time that you connect with, that you can form a genuine relationship with in some way, that matters.
Yeah. And how in all this, the sustainability part, like I know your undies, they've made out of those recycled materials, which I think we've briefly spoken about how hard it has been to translate people into like, okay, this is not cotton, or this is what the fabric is, but how long lasting it is and how good it feels on your body. Because we have a similar product, but that's based on the rugs. We do really thick hand woven recycled rugs. And then we try and explain to people it feels like cotton or wool, very soft. And it's been a big challenge. So how had the whole sustainability concept, if you can share a bit on?
Oh, absolutely. Look, Push, when I started this journey, and I thought, okay, if I'm going to make underwear, I want to make it out of the most sustainable material I can. And
Yeah.
I was convinced that that would be a natural fiber, that surely natural fibers must be, the most sustainable and the most and the most healthy. But then, as I started to scratch the surface, it started to become increasingly more complex.
Yeah.
In that I started looking at bamboo and micromodal, both plant-based, and bamboo being the fastest growing grass in the world. Fabulous that they can grow a product, but then to convert those materials into a soft fabric, it's actually a Frankenstein effect. That the amount of the mechanical and then the amount of chemical processing means that that material is essentially a synthetic at the end. And when I didn't realize myself, I had bamboo clothing, and now I see, every time I look at a label, I can see it says viscous, which means that it's been through this whole mechanical and chemical process to make it into a fabric. Then I started to learn about deforestation, and certainly, for many decades now, I've been interested and concerned in the environment and the impacts. When I learned about the amount of deforestation that's occurring because of the increase in apparel.
Yeah.
Now that the fast fashion industry is putting out so much product now, the demand for growing product means that virgin rainforests often are cut down into plant monocrops. The socks are made out of organic cotton, and cotton is a great fabric, but I think people don't understand that any product that you buy is going to have an impact.
Yeah.
Cotton requires a lot of water to grow. It requires a lot of land, and a lot of that land where there is high rainfall is around the equator, which is where we can least afford to lose forest, because that's the place where forests grow quickly. They absorb lots of carbon. When I discovered that you could take you could take plastic bottles, single-use plastic bottles, like drink bottles, and turn it into a high-performance fabric, was a moment of discovery for me, particularly that we have now over 1 million single-use plastic bottles going out into the world every minute across the globe.
Yeah.
Over 90% of the material that we recycle in terms of putting it into recycle bins is not currently being turned into new products because of lack of demand. And I went, the light bulbs went off for me. If we can take a problem and turn it into a solution, and that most people don't realize that if you wear any sort of underwear that has any stretch in it, even if it's made out of organic cotton, bamboo, even hemp, if it's got stretch in it, it's most often got elastin or spandex, which is also a synthetic, petrochemical base. So our socks, I made the decision to use organic cotton for the socks, because socks need to actually absorb moisture. When your feet are locked away in a shoe, that moisture doesn't breathe out easily. So the sock being absorbent is a good thing. But for undies, you don't want it to hold on to moisture, and that's where the recycled PET or the synthetic is great, because the technology now, our underwear is made in a way that the fiber is shaped, and the way it's woven, that it channels and pulls away moisture from the body, just like the concept with Gore-Tex. So it wicks away moisture and it dries faster than a natural fiber. And I've been speaking to communication with toxicologists, because I, like many people, were concerned that, do synthetics like polyesters leach into the body? And when they're made out of plastic bottles, they drink bottles in terms of, you know, water and soft drink bottles don't contain BPs,
Yeah.
and they're stable. The issue with toxins leaching into water in water bottles is usually because of the way that they've been stored and exposed. So when they get exposed to temperatures above 60 degrees, 60 to 65 degrees, that's when they start leaching into the actual water.
Yeah.
If a human being is, you know, wearing synthetic underwear and they're exposed, you know, for prolonged temperatures above 60 degrees, then they've got bigger problems than their underwear.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that whole journey about what's healthy, what's sustainable, it, you know, though it is complex. It's not easy for consumers. It hasn't been easy for me. Like, and I, you know, I am a believer that the best, the most sustainable product you can have, whatever the material is made of, it's actually the duration, how long you keep it for, how long you use it for. So trying to slow down that process of turning things over is actually what helps us reduce our impact.
Yeah, and I think I would say in 3 years of us into this space in researching as well, that is the conclusion we've come to as well, which is just that definition of what slow fashion is. And it seems like you just have to really get the best use out of it. I think the problem arises when there are people buying new things all the time and they're not even discarded properly. They end up either in landfill or various other sources. So yeah, the fast fashion industry, though, it's all designed in that way, where there are new things coming every season. It's that, it is changing. I think there are a lot of big brands which are making the change. I think for the right reasons, for obviously the economical reasons, because with social media and the awareness, they realize where the things are headed. And for them, because they have such a huge demographic they cover through their stores or through online, they have such a big customer base. If they switch their tactics, it has a change impact quite quickly because the amount of people that there are. But yeah, again, I completely agree. The slow fashion thing doesn't matter what it does matter what the fabric is made out of, but the duration plays such a significant part in terms of sustainability.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're at a point in history where the most valuable thing that we can change to make a sustainable impact is people's minds.
Yeah.
If we can shift our culture, shift our behavior. So I believe that, you know, if people start making a choice, they buy one item or product that's more sustainable than another, then that sets up the mind for thinking about, well, what's the next thing I'm going to do? What's the next product I'm going to buy? I'll look at buying something that's more sustainable. I'll look at, you know, my financial institution, who do I bank with? Am I banking with, you know, an ethical, you know, institution that, you know, plants trees, that doesn't invest in fossil fuels? Or am I checking on what my bank does and making that change? You know, everything from banks to superannuation, to the toothbrush we use.
Yeah.
As we make those incremental changes, and nobody does it perfectly. You know, I think that's another big thing, is that some people will say that, oh, you know, there's all these things, you know, if I still drive a car, or you still drive a car, sure, but you know, if I'm doing these other things that reduce my impact, the fact that we live a modern life, that we need to get around, but every little change we make is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, and it's just there are two books that I really often refer to. One's 2040. I think there was a documentary on it, and they've released a book, and it's really talks about small things we can do as individuals, just small changes. And I think it's just like a little reminder, hey, are you still doing this? Or you can do this. Very simple things. And then there is another book, which is 100 Ways to Reverse basically the global warming sort of situation. And that talks on such a higher level of what the governments need to do. Like that's when they talk about renewable energies, taking away from fossil fuels, all that good stuff, which will require trillions of dollars of investment. but that's just going to really flip the planet Earth on its and bring it back to what it needs to be on. So those two books are great. I always look at them and I'm like, okay, which part am I doing, and which part I know which I don't have control over. But this is what needs to be done on a bigger scale, which is out of our power. But I'm sure it will happen. The millennials will change it. Like I've got the younger clientele, like the millennials, they seem to be the people who understand, even with our products. It could be obviously uniforms is the main thing that we make, but whenever we are talking with someone younger, they just always seem to be on board much quicker by experience than a generation which is much set in their ways, and I don't know what it is, but we always find younger generations to be much more easier to be able to translate all the concepts to.
Yes, I definitely agree. I mean, I'm a Gen X,
yeah,
but I see that the younger generation, they get it. There's much more exposure to it for them.
Yeah.
But I think, previous generations, mine and older, that there's an element of, if we accept that there's this damage going on, that if the people accept that there is climate change is real, then they also have to accept responsibility. They have to accept that we have been contributors to it. And that's a big shift for many people to go, okay, I've been part of the problem for a long time. But the wonderful thing is, when you talk about, the documentary or the book in the 2040, and David Attenborough's, last documentary and his witness statement, is actually that we have this great opportunity to be part of the solution. That we know we have the technology already to make really dramatic changes. It's the will. It's the will that we need to turn around, because, like you said, we can flip this. We can make a dramatic difference. And my reference point has often been actually America entering the Second World War. That it went from a huge manufacturing industry making lifestyle goods into an effort to defend itself and others. And it saw women enter the workforce in huge numbers. It saw industry literally transform overnight into a new effort. And so that's just proof that we can do it. That it, with the right leadership. But I think I'm a bit reluctant to leave it all in the hands of the politicians and large business, and that is why I've started my own gig. I think each of us, you don't have to start a business, but if you start something. I was at a tree planting, so that we're partnered with Half Cut, an organisation run fund, to plant trees and save rainforests. And this week we had a tree planting drive to plant 3,000 trees from the PSS challenge, fundraising challenge, in the big scrub here. And there were a number of people who never been out to a tree planting before. And I was like, that's fabulous. You come out once and you see the community, and you see that you have this feeling when you can touch it, when you can put something in the ground and see it grow, and that you're given the planet an opportunity to regenerate. And that hopefully those people then come back and do another tree planting, or they consider if they what they're cutting down, and of course other choices they make in terms of services and products throughout their day.
And it's amazing, even on the level of I'll personally, this week has been quite hard because, as you're aware of the COVID situation in India, so obviously personal reasons and work reasons both, it has a big impact on us. Work reasons primarily because of like our uniforms, that from raw materials to that gets manufactured there. We have a very small but a close-knit team. I didn't realize till now like how much you feel responsible for. There's one thing which is COVID, and then the sustainability about a household. And just I'll quickly share one of the guys who they've hand wove the recycled plastic bottle rugs, like the recycled plastic rugs. I hadn't spoken to him in 2.5 weeks, and we just wanted to share a little bit about, okay, this is like these are the changes, and this is what's coming next month. And he pretty much just said, okay, he couldn't talk, and I didn't realize, and he's in his late 20s, but his mother passed away because of COVID. He was in hospital for the last 18 days that I couldn't get in touch with him for, and she was 47. And you talk about all these, like, COVID has taught, like, especially this time, the wave in India has taught so much around what matters to people and what not. And I guess the sustainability in terms of people's livelihoods. Like, they are ready to, the guys, they are ready to take on more work. Even their mother has just passed away because they have responsibility to feed their own families and keep going, and that positive mindset they need to have. But just talking to them, you feel so strongly about, okay, this just, like, it fixes things. And I guess when we talk about nature yesterday, and I hear so many stories all throughout our production lines, because there are people whose either immediate family members or friends, they are affected. But then I went over to the Mindil Beach area, look at the water, and I remember I saw the girls playing in sand and stuff, and and I looked at Siobhan again, and we say it all the time, and I'm like, yeah, I feel a bit, I've calmed down, my emotions have calmed down a lot, and Siobhan's like, nature fixes everything. And I think it's that nature fixes everything is something that we both rely on a lot. Doesn't matter, it's emotional sort of breakdown, or I guess even in terms of when we talk about any sort of thing, we just forget that we are the small part of this planet Earth, this beautiful Earth. And we just really crave that simplicity that's around us. And I know you live in a beautiful Byron Bay hinterland. You are really surrounded by nature. And I think mentally it has such a strong impact on you. It just brings you in harmony. I don't know how to explain it, but just brings you in harmony with yourself, with your thoughts. That's how I find nature. So
yes, yeah, absolutely. I think that's as a health professional, we really need to encourage that perspective on health, that it's mind, body, spirit, and planet.
yeah,
Is that nature fixes everything. I'm actually not so concerned about nature, because I think I love to observe things like weeds and what we call pests, in terms of animals and insects that thrive. That nature is robust. It's resilient. It will transform, and it adapts very quickly. Humans, the impact for us is that there's certain things in the environment that really benefit us. We're some of our behaviour is leading to damage to that. We're actually the ones that lose. The nature will continue regardless, unless we split the planet in half. Life will continue in some form. But it is that renewal. Getting a dose. I think it's for me. What I eat is important. What I do, that I'm a martial artist, that I want to use my body, I need to exercise in some way. I need to, if I don't meditate, I lose my shit, and, my head goes all over the place. So I need to keep that on track. But I need to have time where I connect with the environment, and I think, when we encourage, I think a big part of the planting trees and saving rainforests is encourage people to connect with the environment and not see it as, the environment is something separate from us, that, we are deeply connected with it. And, if we don't look after the species, the diversity that we have now, it's actually a loss for us as a species. Yes. Yeah. And, I'm deeply grateful for where I live, and be able to just step out my door and, have huge gum trees that I'm surrounded by. But when I see your post, particularly when you're out at East Point, that was a very significant place for me as I, growing up, and to see the sunset or the sunrise, out over the coastline of Darwin is something that's magic.
Yeah, you just can't explain it. I know there are many places around the world which have great sunrises and sunsets. But yeah, we are very attached to those Darwin sunrises and sunsets. It's become part of your food almost, like it's like your habit. Every week you have to have a nice dose of it. And look, this time of the year, it's amazing because the dry season has just started. And I like to wake up early, as you said something, if you don't meditate, you lose your shit. I think Siobhan would say the same about me. If I don't have my time early in the morning, she's like, it's a different person that operates all day. If I've had that and I'm awake before the sun comes up and I see that the light slowly, the day starting, it just resets my body in such a way. But that's one of the amazing things that we love about smartass undies is 50% of your profits goes towards planting trees through that half cut all. It's so commendable to see. And this is because we are trying to, like, our platform, the Bonpinda Collective, is basically, we bring in stuff which we hand source some vintage stuff, or otherwise we make products out of surplus fabrics or discarded material. Everyone else there, 85% of the things that we have on there are independent makers like yourself, or brands, or they're artists with similar philosophies. And that's been the biggest win for us over the last year and a bit that we've had this. It's connecting to likes of yourself and many others in the pursuit to create this. And I think it's hard to explain, but as a business or as a company, that's the part that wakes you up in the morning and you want to keep going, because it's just that strong community that you're creating, and then people that you're connecting with, and it's so fulfilling. Sorry, it's so fulfilling. And I just can't express the gratitude that I have towards everyone and the stuff that I've learned so much from. And yeah, so it's amazing what you are doing.
Yeah, I think, we need to see a transformation across all industries, and I want to believe, I need to believe that the economics of the way that we operate in the world is changing.
Yeah.
In that, a lot of businesses are now moving to 1% for the earth, 1% for the planet, or 10%. And for me, going 50%, we're a new business. We're not yet profitable, but okay, if we can make a difference. I love Who Gives a Crap, the toilet paper brand, and their commitment of 50% of their profits to supporting the putting in clean and functional toilets into places where they don't have that. Improve sanitization, improving health, and improving people's lives. I would love to see that grow, across a whole range of industries. I guess I'm fortunate that I have a day job, as well as having smartass undies as a side gig, and I've always worked in organisations that make a difference. That I work for one of the largest disability providers in Australia now, and every day they're working to support people to lead meaningful and purposeful lives. And if I can, whatever I do, if I can find a way that it has a positive impact, then I know that I'm on the right track.
Yeah, that's just so wonderful. And I think one of the things I'm glad you found, like, planting trees, is like we've been looking for 2.5 years of how we give back and how we make a difference. And of course, you have all the products and stuff, but that's been one of the hardest things to pick because there's so many organizations you can connect to, but then you kind of want to do the things which feels right for you. And I reckon Siobhan and I, our first priority was everyone, as you know already, that uniforms is our key. As you say, you have a day job. If I would say what's my day job, I will say we manufacture ethical, and hope try and be as sustainable as possible with making uniform for schools, businesses, and workwear. But first priority was everyone in the supply chain. They need to be treated very fairly. That's our first priority of giving back, instead of trying to do something else. Whoever's making the product, what choices are this is enabling them to have by working through with us? What are we going to try and achieve? Are we going to just become a profit for us company, or are we going to become something where we all grow together in the right way that we should? So once we had achieved that through our business model, then the second thing that we've come up with, and this is just a recent addition, is through Apparel, the recycling company in Australia, where we are not we are taking up the cost of warehousing everything, collecting all the discarding items in the Northern Territory. That's just a new initiative we've started that will take the cost. We'll take the cost of storage and the responsibility of getting the stuff down to Melbourne, so that the products don't end up in all landfill. And it doesn't really, that's what we wanted, to close the loop. And a lot of the products eventually through Apparel get donated, because 65% of the things that they receive, they're in good to wear conditions. So they go to households or charities which can really use them. So it's a win-win situation. But it had taken us a long time to get there, to be able to see, okay, what fits right with our philosophy and our model, and where we can work on something which is very practical and sits in with our business perfectly. And I think with Apparel, we found that solution. And of course, things change, but we are very happy and feel proud to be able to do that. And you do that at any cost. Like Elon Musk, I love one of his lines that he has: if something's important enough, you do it regardless of the cost it's going to have on you. So we feel this is important with what we're doing, and you just wake up and you do it regardless of I guess what a business manager would say. Okay, if this is not good for your business or your company, you need to look at the bottom line. And I think we say, okay, these are the things, philosophies, or the models that we want to work on. The bottom line will fix itself eventually.
Yes, yeah. Well, that triple bottom line.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah, and that concept of profit, how we profit. I know that my decisions to use a recycled material, you know, often costs more than actually the use of virgin material. That biodegradable packaging costs more than non-biodegradable packaging. But I think for people like us, we see the profit that not just in the financial remuneration or the number of figures that come up dollar-wise, but that profit in knowing that our choices match our values.
Yeah.
The profit there, and that there's the profit of the impact on other people's lives, the people who make the product, and to the environment. That's where it's not something you calculate and the accountant sits down and adds in. But I really believe that brings profit and value to not only a business but to our lives personally.
Yes, and as you know, and through Bonpinda Collective, we've geared it in such a way that it's not, as long as our cost is covered, and that's the only focus that everything is designed on. It's to be able to bring these independent makers or brands or people who are doing these things forward and share their story. And again, that slow fashion thing comes into play too, because a lot of the things that we have, we feel like they're timeless. Okay, we don't need them to all sell out in a month. Hopefully in 3 or 4 months' time, you might look at something and you might want to buy it. It's not designed in a way that, okay, every 2 months there's something new and the old stock has been put on sale. I think initially we had a couple of sales on, and then I think we looked at each other and we were like, Siobhan and I were like, what are we doing? Why are we actually putting on a sale? We can't, that's not the model. We don't want people to just go purchase because something is cheaper, because it's already at a very, with sustainable materials or biodegradable packaging and everything, it's already a lot more cost than what a big company would face. Trying to do the right thing, unfortunately, in this day and time, is very expensive. It's very
Yes,
expensive
yeah.
because it's not done on that scale. And unless we achieve that scale where biodegradable packaging, for example, becomes a norm, the cost is not going to be that competitive to what the virgin materials are.
Absolutely. And that's where, I guess we're looking for an audience that values something more than just a discounted price, which is tough. We now live in a consumer culture that expects regular discounts. There are many companies and brands that perpetually have sales because their original markup price, their retail price is inflated so that they can straight away discount it, and they've already calculated that profit line. But for small businesses like ours, that's very different. We can't compete with that sort of model easily. It is a challenge, but I guess for us, it's about finding the right tribe.
Yeah, and look, lastly, just on those lines, I want to know, do you think in terms of what you value and stuff, has it always been there, or do you feel like there has been a change since you became a father, I suppose, in what you think about and your choices? You are more conscious about your decision making and in what you consume and what you do on daily basis. Do you think since you became a father that has changed significantly?
Push. I think that on reflection, there's always been an element in me of being what I call conservative in terms of conserving resources. My father's parents, came out from China during the Second World War. Their homes were, demolished. They lost family members. They came to Australia with what they could carry, which was mostly two children at the time and a couple of bags. So they valued everything. Everything they saw as precious. From a newspaper to a tin can, they were looking for ways of how they could repurpose everything. And so I was exposed to that from day one. Certainly, having children what that has done is really evoked in me this passion to make improvements in the planet's condition, particularly with global warming, because I think we're going to see significant changes, but our children, they're going to see more changes in their life than the whole of human history. They're going to see more changes in their generation than all generations prior to them. A lot of that is there's a lot of that is technology, but they're going to see greater changes in the environment than any other generation, and that has really spurred in me a passion to do things that I can show them that they can make a difference, that they know that how big is my difference going to be? I don't know. We'll see. But at least, I can go to the grave knowing that I put effort in and I tried. And that's the best you can ask for any human. That we come up, there's some big challenges, but if we put in the effort and we know our effort is being put into a good place, I think that we can, rest easy knowing, doing that. And, give our children the best chance possible.
And that's just so beautiful, Brendan. And I've just, while you were saying that, it just reminded me of a couple of years ago, Mum and Dad came when we were in Victoria to our place to meet the children. And in our home there, we had, obviously they got to experience how Siobhan and I live, and Dad came up from a fairly, they didn't have much when they grew up either. And he was just so happy, him and Mum, that they saw that we didn't have any waste in our household. They were happy that things were getting composted. There was only enough produce. Everything got used to the last bit. Even tea leaves or coffee like waste was not put in bin. And if there was food on the ground that the kids had thrown, had gone to the chooks, for example. And while I'm very lucky personally, we've got Siobhan's family, I've learned a lot from, especially Siobhan's mum and dad. They just, some people just know so much, and you just learn from your environment. And I've been lucky to have been linked with such a nice family whose their routines are so, like, it's part of their life. With everything that I think about sustainability or you read in the books, they've been doing that for years in, years out, on daily basis. And when you see that around you, you pick up those habits so quickly. So yeah, and I hope we can forward that on to our kids, and as organically as we would adapted that from, I guess, my parents or even our surroundings.
And I really love, what you're doing with the school uniforms, because that's such a strong message, to start with the kids, where the kids are wearing, the school uniforms that are, more sustainably made. And that idea that will become normalized for them. That the children, this generation, those children that are fortunate to be in schools where they made that decision, it's like you talked about the biodegradable plastics, those things will be just normal. They will expect, they've got their school uniforms that are more sustainably made. They'll just start expecting, everything to be made more sustainably. And when there's that demand, things will change. We saw Aldi make the announcement of, going, zero net emissions.
Yep.
Recently, which has put the pressure on, the other big players, Coles, to make it, announcement of the same, and I'm sure that Woolworths will do the same. They're probably not doing it, off they're not. Some of them might not be doing off their own back, but that sort of positive peer pressure, positive pressure from the consumers, changes things. The same with government. When people have expectations, then we will have governments that have to meet those expectations.
Yes, it's those positive expectations. And look, it's been amazing talking to you, Brendan. And I think we feel privileged that we've come to know you and connect to you through our startup, and we respect and admire what you are doing because I know through our phone calls how tough having a business is, where you've put your savings and your own personal money into something, and you keep doing that on regular basis to just promote this thing. And we really admire it, and we're glad that you are we can showcase some of your products on our website and spread that message across to our community.
The feeling is very mutual there, Push. And I said at the very beginning when I started smartass Undies, that we talk about profit, if the only thing that comes out of it is that I have the opportunity to connect with other like-minded people who share these values and want to promote them, and I have customers that are the type of people that if I met them in the street, I would, I'd love to sit down and have a warm or cold brew with them, and talk about, making a difference in the world. Then I will have won. So I feel like I've kicked a number of goals in that arena already.
No, so good to hear. So good to hear, Brendan. Look, I better keep going with the rest of our daily schedules. And thank you so much for making this time again, Brendan. Lovely to speak to you.
Oh, thank you, Push. Thank you for the opportunity to have a chat today.
No problem.